What's up, Diablo 4 players? So let's hop into it. How to make billions and millions of gold in Season 5. What are the items that you want to pick up? Even if you don't want to use it, you can sell it and trade it for other items or gold. And this is essentially how you are going to get the best in slot. It all comes down to trading in the game. Without trade, you're not realistically going to get the best in slot for any sort of build. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. So I have a video already that goes over how to function on the trade websites. This video is mainly going to be focusing in on what stats people are looking for in Season 5. But if you don't know how to trade in the game, I have a video that I've already uploaded and I'll link it down below. It goes over how to use the trade websites regardless of what trade website you want to use. There's a lot of different trade websites that can be better for you. Maybe you just like their interface, but there's a lot of different tools that will really help you out, and it's specifically knowing what items are going to be actually worth things and what items are basically garbage. So to start off with this video, I always get asked, how do you have so much gold? It's just trade. I'm not just picking up gold and playing the game for 30 hours a day to get the gold. What really it comes down to is selling one item for $1 billion, $2 billion, several million here. I'm flipping items. That's how you essentially are getting gold in the game. So again, this video is going to focus in on the stuff that you want. I'm going to go over every single class here. It's going to be kind of rapid fire, but at the same time, some of these will overlap, like as in some items from the sorceress may work with, like, let's say the barbarian, because you're looking for like the same sort of like rolls on the gear, with the exception of maybe intelligence. You just need to roll that to strength or whatever the case may be, depending on the class. So I still recommend you guys to still watch this, because I'm going to consider some of these like generic items, like for example, across all classes, getting a ring with crit strike chance, some form of damage, and then attack speed or main stat, depending on the class you're playing. You can run this on every single class. It's not like this only works for Sorc. So that's why I'm saying just watch the video all the way. I promise you, I'll try to make it as fast as possible, and I will save you tons of time and get you the best in slot by knowing not only what is the best in slot, but what items you need to pick up so you don't delete. All right. So starting right off, let's go over the Sorc, but again, it'll apply to all classes. So in most circumstances, the helmet slot is always going to be the Harlequin crest. So it's not like you can pick up an item that is going to be worth a lot. The only exception is maybe Godslayer, but majority of players will eventually just swap to another helm. But for the Druid, this is one exception. The Druid, they have a lot of helmets that they can actually use, but you can run Godslayer, but it's not necessarily going over like what's the best in slot necessarily for like very niche builds. It's kind of like looking at what the meta is, because the meta determines what people want to play, therefore the demand is going to be much higher. So for the helm, most of them are going to play Harlequin, so it's not like a really god tier helm that you can actually trade, because this is what the video is focused in on. Like I said, Harlequin is going to be the pretty much best in slot. Now, for the chest piece, a lot of people are playing Tyraels, but you can also run Raiment for more damage, the stuff that people are looking for, and I've highlighted the greater affixes, because a regular Raiment of the Infinite, it's garbage. People don't want to trade for it. They're only looking for greater affixes, so that is the most important thing when you're looking to trade and sell things for millions and billions of gold. You have to have the greater affixes. The only ones that really matter here are going to be the bonus to int and really the glass cannon. And then for gloves, this is going to be generic with a lot of different classes. So in a lot of different classes, this is kind of what you're looking for. Attack speed, critical strike, damage, critical strike chance, instead of damage for some builds. With Sorc, it's going to be damage. However, for a lot of different builds, this is why I said to watch everything, because it's kind of generic. You want ranks to whatever core skill that you want. Not specifically getting core skills, but there are classes like Necromancer that you do want core skills, because it works with like some of the other skills that will count as a core skill. But in general, it could be Fireball, or it could be, let's say, Frozen Orb. You know, obviously if you're playing, Fireball, there's like special gloves for that. There's like gloves Illuminator, but it depends on the class that you're playing. You may want ranks to whatever like skill it is, but make sure if, you are trying to go for it, it's actually meta. Don't try to go for like ice shards, because like no one really is playing ice shards in Season 5. But for the most part, these are kind of the stats that you're looking for in majority of builds. But on Sorc, this is kind of what you're looking at. And then for the pants, some people like to play Tibalt's, but in general with the pants, you're just looking for specifically the character's main stat, and then maximum life, and then maybe some sort of other defensive stat, whether that's armor or that could be life or dodge. Those are all great stats, but Tibalt's Will is great on a lot of classes, and specifically getting the all stats, max life, as well as the damage reduction while unstoppable. Those are the stats that will give good value, but also you need to look at specifically the deal X damage while you are unstoppable. This is a really good thing to have. Then Esu's boots, these are pretty much best in slot for a lot of builds, so getting movement speed, crit strike damage is what you're looking for, and getting that thing to be high rolled is really key. Now as far as the weapons go, Usually for a lot of Sorc builds, it's going to be crit strike damage, but also getting greater affixes anywhere is good, but the one that everyone's really looking for is just the greater affix on crit strike damage, as a lot of people are playing the lightning spear build. Another thing to mention that is really important, yellow items are completely pointless, but I put these here so we don't clog up the amount of stats that are on the item, because every item to roll 3 stats, it has to be a legendary item. I just decided not to put that extra stat in terms of the line, just so there's less clutter, so hopefully that makes sense. So again, anything that you're picking up, it has to be a legendary. So no rares. Rares are completely pointless in the game. It's just, again, for the sake of clutter, I just moved it out of the way. Next up, Fractured Window Glass is pretty much the best amulet, but other good amulets could be cooldown reduction, other things like Glass Cannon, or other offensive different things on the skill tree. Those are all good, but a lot of times people want Conjuration cooldown, as well as getting Conjuration Mastery, and then a high roll on the unique power is very important for the amulet slot for Sorcs if you want to get good money. And then on top of that, Talrasha's Iridescent Loop, specifically getting greater affix on the cooldown reduction is the thing that most people want, plus you need the X80 to be really good. And then for the ring, it's kind of up to you. Some people are playing Starless Skies, but getting crit strike chance, crit damage, attack speed, that's going to be generic on all of the builds for the most part. And then next up, let's move into Barbarian. As far as Helm, again, it's going to be Harlequin in most builds. Rage is actually a pretty good chest armor. It gives you an insane amount of critical strike chance. I mean, look at that. That's 15 crit. I mean, if you get that Masterworked, I mean, that's 21 crit right there. Crazy. Pingorger sees a little bit of play. There's still some Bash Barbs out there. Honestly, Barb's not the most hot class in Season 5, but Whirlwind is really popular too, but you can just run like a different pair of gloves there. And then as far as boots go, this is going to be what I consider like a generic boots. Also, Tibalt's Will is really good, but I already went over it during the Sorc. That's why I'm telling you guys, just watch the whole video. But as far as the boots go, you definitely want to try to get maximum movement speed, then some life or armor, and then also dodge is a good stat, and then your character's main stat, getting multiple greater affixes. I've sold some of these like boots for several billion, so like I got 4 billion for a pair of boots that were exactly the same over here. These are good. And then as far as a lot of the weapons go, again, it's your character's main stat, critical strike damage, you can get vulnerable damage, damage over time, depends on your build, and then maximum life is generally what you're going to want. And then greater affix on Ramilondi's Magnum Opus, you definitely want to get the greater affix on maximum resource. That's the most important one. Then crit strike damage is kind of nice too, but you also want the unique power to be really good on it. That's the thing that's going to give you good money on Barbarian. Now for the amulet, I want to go ahead and use this one as an example, so I lift it blank. So you get a bunch of passives here. So like depending on your build, like before you would want Cut to the Bone, but Bleed Barb got nerfed. So any of the like different +2 whatever thing, it depends on the build, but ideally you want to try to get multiple. You can get cooldown reduction, you can get crit. Those are all great stats to go ahead and have on Barbarian. And then on the ring, it's kind of a generic ring, crit strike chance, attack speed, then your main stat. Again, that's kind of what's going to give you good value on a Barb. As far as Necromancer, as far as the helmet goes, this is one of the builds with Bone Spirit that you do definitely want to actually not play Harlequin, because you need the essence per second. Getting cooldown reduction, essence per second, as well as maximum resource. The max resource is really good because it increases your damage with the build. And then your chest piece, you want Macabre skills. You can also get essence here. This is another great thing to get. Again, getting these greater affix to have value. The reason why it's Macabre skills is that is going to be for Bone Spirit. This is pretty much basically one of the best builds in the game. You can see also it counts as core. That's the one area where we'd actually want to core skills versus like, let's say, Bone Spear, because this is a Bone Spirit build. Same thing with like Sorc. There's a couple skills that count as core skills that you'd have to roll on your glove category here. And then Path of Trag'Oul can have some value if you get greater affix to Bone skills, as well as Bone Prison cooldown reduction, as it's tied to how the build works. Banished Lord's Talisman, I believe Necromancer is the one that can like consistently just spam it. If you guys have seen when I dropped my little showcase, I think it was like a YouTube short or something, where we showed off there's like infinite Banished Lord's Talisman. It's great. Greater affix to overpower, as well as core skills, can be something to look for. And then you kind of have like the generic ring, which we've talked about several times over here. And then for the weapons, again, it's the same thing. You definitely want to get on Necromancer like crit, int, and then obviously your maximum life. And then for the Rogue, this is kind of what you're looking for. So a lot of builds right now, we're playing the Poison Barrage Rogue build. If you guys haven't seen that build, is like definitely so far the best build that I've played by a long shot. So the things that people want, obviously, you're going to be playing Andariels, you're going to play Tyrael, so no one's going to trade for those because you cannot trade the Ubers. And then Fists of Fate are really good here. Ideally, getting lucky hit chance, attack speed is what you want. You don't really need that crit strike chance. It could roll garbage because the build can benefit off of crit, but it's only via the Umber's Dark Shred, so it's not something that's really important here. But you also have to get the 300 or like at least 280 plus to really get those billions of gold. This is how you're going to be making money in the game, selling Fists of Fate, because every single class can get Fist of Fate. It's acquired by the Beast and Ice. This is one of the top tier things for farming. If you get a good one, we're talking billions of gold real quick, because a lot of builds will be running this item. Even Sorc builds could actually run this as well. It's just fantastic, but it's just almost impossible to get like the god rolls on this thing. Again, you have 4 different rolls that roll on it, and then on top of that, the other percent, it doesn't matter how good the other ones are. If you get a 200%, it's basically garbage for a lot of players, so keep that in mind as well. If that other stat isn't good, don't expect to get billions of gold for this. And if you're ever wondering as far as price checking items, I have a video kind of dedicated towards it. I'm just going to really recommend you guys to check this video out. It's going to solve everything. It's just, this video is mainly dedicated, again, towards the idea of what you want to pick up. But yeah, that's really good. And as far as pants go, this could actually hold some good value as well. For a lot of different seasons in Diablo, rogue stuff always sells for like the most. I don't know why, but like the rogue players, they just are willing to spend a lot. But getting like Dex, Max Life, and Dodge is actually a really good stat on rogue, because you can start stacking it, and a lot of builds may run Everliving or any other things to like do with Dodge. I mean, getting like the Dodge chance up is absolutely crazy, because it's not like inverse multiplicative on the tempers anymore. It's actually really crazy good. So getting like triple GA on pants, billions. And then the boots, it's the generic boots that we've already talked about. Getting Dex and Max Life are the 2 good greater affixes. Some builds may want crit, like if you're playing like Rapid Fire or like a pure Barrage, a non-Andariel variant. That could be good for greater affix too, but it's kind of like a generic one. The rogue amulets go crazy in price. I'm talking like the most expensive things I've ever seen in the game are rogue amulets. It's because getting these things are so incredibly rare, and now you do want alchemic advantage. It is one of the things that you can get over here, and it's because it gives you lucky hit and attack speed, which you'll just cap out on. It's so good for the Andariel rogue build. And then like with the rings, you can get lucky hit, damage over time, Dex, or if you're playing a crit build, well then obviously you can also get crit. Umber Crux is really good. However, this item doesn't really have a stat that's really expensive to roll, but like I said, rogue items always sell for crazy amounts, so it's still worth it. Even though there's not a stat here that's like, oh, now this is a godly item. Innervation could be good for some builds that don't play Inner Sight. I always opt to play Inner Sight, so I don't worry about that. But getting Dex, vulnerable damage, it will actually still be worth a lot, even though it doesn't affect the gameplay of the build too much to get the higher one. The stat that actually needs to roll high is the subterfuge skills, creating the totem, lasting for 8 seconds. If it's not an 8-second one, a lot of times people are just like, I don't want to cast it again. So this is the stat that has to be perfect in order for it to be actually worth anything in the first place. It's just how it works. If you get like a 7.9, it's fine. But a lot of times people are only searching for 8. So like it doesn't matter that it's barely right there. People just aren't going to be searching for it. That's just the nature of, you know, trading in action RPGs. All right, we got my boy Druid. This is where it gets very interesting. So as far as we're aware of, Landslide is the current best build. There's also like a build that people call the AK-47 Druid, because it just makes crazy sound with like Landslide, right? So Vasili's Prayer over here is the thing that it holds the most value. Getting stuff to willpower, defensive posture is really good as well. And then armor can actually be an okay greater affix depending on the build that you are looking at, because sometimes people will just get armor in another category, so they just want that willpower. This is an item that is very good just for survivability on the Druid, and it's pretty much the best in slot for a lot of builds. Temper Sword kind of has been phased out, but that's like another unique that you could run the helmet slot. A lot of Druids, again, you don't have to play the Harlequin. But as far as the chest piece goes, this is where it gets really pricey as well. That's the Spirit per second. You definitely want that greater affix, because Spirit can be a problem unless you are playing a build with a Moneric Ring. Some builds actually opt to not play it, even though I think every build should be playing it, but people do want that Spirit per second. And then on top of that, you can still have like an aspect here. And then we have the Unsung Ascetics. This is really popular. It's kind of tied into the Landslide build, but it's still a pretty good item as well. So it depends on the build. There are some Hurricane as well as Cataclysm builds that they want the Defiance, but in general, you can basically max out your like Lightning Paragon thing with the damage to distance here. So this is really good. If it's a Lightning Storm build, then yeah, you need that. But if it's like a Hurricane or another build, they may not actually actually need that. So this is where it gets really flexible, but obviously crit is always going to be good, but there is some flexibility where you might not need to have that. This thing could roll garbage and people will still run it specifically for the Defiance to keep up the duration, but the other builds, they may not need it. If it's a pure Lightning Storm build, then you don't really need that. Anyways, for the boots over here, we got the Wild Heart Hunger. We're just looking for heightened senses as well as shapeshifting, but the bottom thing needs to be that 3% in order for it to be big money. And then for the amulet, quick shift and venom, any other offensive stat, you look for a crit chance as well. Or cooldown reduction, that's also good. Monarch Ring, pretty much everything except for the movement speed is what people are looking for, but the Cataclysm unique thing needs to be at like 90x above, otherwise people won't even want to try to search for it. With the Earthbreaker, you definitely want that earth attack speed. You don't actually need Landslide, surprisingly, to be actually greater affix, and that is because the whole build usually relies off of specifically that if you're playing like the build that a lot of people are playing by Ace, shouts to him, that one is usually just the attack speed that you want, but there is a landslide build that technically is all landslide, and then for that build, then you would want it. Again, some of these are more flexible than others. And then for the totem here, this is where things can get pretty pricey as well. Getting cooldown and crit, for whatever reason, it's just not the easiest thing to roll, and then the last stat doesn't matter on it because it's like, okay, you get a little bit of willpower. Cool. If you get a greater affix willpower, that'd be ideal too. But specifically cooldown reduction and critical strike chance, those in combo, that's money, man. We're talking billions on this one as well. So hopefully this guide helped you guys out, and now you know kind of what to look out for. But if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn that bell if you guys want to see more, and make sure you guys check out the other video that will be pinned down below. If you're brand new to trading and you don't know like what websites to go to, use that tool. It's going to really help you out. But take care, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.